Right now, you cannot remember what you had for lunch 3 days ago, but you can probably remember the exact moment you said something embarrassing in front of someone you liked. You can feel it, not just remember it, feel it. The warmth in your face, the way the room seemed to tilt slightly, the specific sound of the silence that followed. That's not a coincidence. Your brain is running a triage system, and it was built 200,000 years ago. Most people assume memory works like a camera. You experience something, it gets stored, you retrieve it later. Clear, faithful, complete. It doesn't work like that. Memory is more like a filing clerk who is constantly flooded with stress hormones and has very strong opinions about what deserves to be kept. Every second, your brain receives roughly 11 million bits of sensory information. You consciously process about 40. The rest gets filtered, quietly, without your input, without your awareness. And the filter has one governing principle: keep what might matter for survival. Everything else gets discarded. What you had for lunch 3 days ago, unless something went badly wrong, almost certainly didn't matter. It was written in pencil on a scrap of paper, and then the scrap fell behind the desk. The embarrassing moment, carved in stone, and the reason has almost nothing to do with the memory itself. It reaches all the way back to a structure in your brain that was ancient before language existed. Deep inside your brain, there is a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. It is old, very old, long before humans had a prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for reasoning, planning, language, and everything else you consider distinctly human. They had an amygdala. It came first. In evolutionary terms, it's the landlord. The prefrontal cortex pays rent. Its function, simplified: detect emotional significance, rate the stakes, flag what matters. When something emotionally significant happens, whether it's wonderful or terrible, the amygdala fires a signal. That signal triggers the release of a stress hormone called norepinephrine into the hippocampus, the region of the brain where long-term memories are encoded. Think of norepinephrine as a chemical highlighter. The greater the emotional intensity of a moment, the more norepinephrine gets released, and the more vividly that moment gets written into long-term memory. This is why you remember your first kiss, but not the second Tuesday of that same month. This is why you remember the exact words of the phone call, the moment the fight turned, the look on someone's face when they said the thing they couldn't take back. Not because memory is accurate, because memory is prioritized. In 1994, neuroscientist James McGaugh and colleagues at UC Irvine published a study in Nature that made this mechanism impossible to ignore. They gave participants a drug that blocks norepinephrine, a beta blocker that prevents the chemical highlighter from working. Then they showed them emotionally disturbing images, accidents, medical emergencies, the kind of content the amygdala would normally treat as urgent. A week later, they tested recall. The disturbing images were gone. Not faded, not blurry. Gone, as if they had never seen them. The participants who received the placebo, whose norepinephrine systems worked normally, remembered the disturbing images in precise detail. McGaugh called this process emotional memory consolidation. The emotional charge of an experience directly determines how permanently it gets stored. More emotion, more norepinephrine, stronger memory, and it maps perfectly onto your life. Think of the last 5 things you can recall clearly from the past year. A conversation, a moment, something that still feels immediate. How many of them were neutral? Because your brain isn't remembering randomly. It's running a very specific priority list. Social rejection, remembered with precision. Physical danger, stored completely. Romantic humiliation, filed under, never forget. The moment someone laughed at you in front of a room of people, still there, still exact, decades later. And here's where it gets stranger. In 2001, Psychologist Roy Baumeister at Case Western Reserve published a sweeping review of hundreds of studies in the Review of General Psychology. His finding was simple and deeply uncomfortable. Bad memories stick harder than good ones. Not slightly, significantly. The phenomenon is called negativity bias. Your brain assigns roughly twice the emotional weight to negative experiences as it does to positive ones of equivalent intensity. A year of good mornings can dissolve. One terrible conversation, replayed word for word 10 years later. Your wedding day might blur at the edges. The fight you had the week before, sharp, detailed, fully available. This isn't a malfunction. This was the right design for most of human history. Because for most of human history, forgetting something dangerous meant dying. If a predator attacked you near the river at dawn, you needed to remember that. Permanently. The location, the time, the pattern. No second chances, no learning curve. Forget once and that was it. If your social group expelled you, rejected you, cast you out, that was equally fatal. Humans cannot survive alone on the open savanna. Isolation didn't mean loneliness. It meant death. Reliable as drought, reliable as winter. So the amygdala treated both threats the same way. The lion and the humiliation. Both got the norepinephrine flood. Both got carved in. Your amygdala was never taught the difference between a physical threat and a social one. Both register as danger. Both trigger the same cascade. Both earn the same permanent storage. This is why the embarrassing moment from 2009 still surfaces at 3 a.m., uninvited while you're trying to sleep. Your brain has assessed the situation and concluded, still relevant, still a threat, still worth reviewing. It doesn't know about your apartment, your career. The fact that the person who witnessed that moment almost certainly doesn't remember you at all. It has one very old playbook, and it has never stopped running. Joseph LeDoux at New York University spent decades mapping this. In his 1996 book, The Emotional Brain, he documented what his lab had found again and again. Once an emotional memory is encoded, once the amygdala has tagged it, the norepinephrine has flooded in, the hippocampus has written it down. It does not erase cleanly. You can suppress it, build new associations around it, recontextualize it over time. But the original trace stays. The groove in the stone remains. Every time you replay that cringeworthy moment, every time it surfaces in the shower, on a walk, in the quiet before sleep, your amygdala is performing exactly the function it was designed to perform. It's reviewing the record, confirming the lesson was learned, making sure you won't make the same mistake near the river at dawn. The fact that there is no river, no dawn, no actual threat, your amygdala doesn't have that information. In 2011, psychologist Daniel Kahneman described something he called the remembering self, the version of you that narrates your own life, that constructs the story of who you are and what has happened to you. The remembering self is not neutral. It runs on emotional highlights, a curated reel assembled without your consent by a structure in your brain that was built for a world that no longer exists. It overweights the bad. It underweights the quiet, the steady, the good enough. You think you're remembering your life. You're remembering the parts your amygdala decided were too dangerous to forget. Everything else, the ordinary Tuesdays, the unremarkable lunches, the long stretches of fine, quietly let go. Because they didn't earn a stone tablet. Only the fire got one. You are not broken. You are ancient. The embarrassing memory you cannot shake. The 3 a.m. replay. The moment you have wished 1,000 times you could simply delete. That is not a flaw. That is the most faithful part of your brain, doing its oldest job. It kept every one of your ancestors alive long enough to have children. It remembered the river, the wrong step. The moment the group turned and who turned first. It handed that system to you, intact, unchanged. And now it is here, in a world of offices, and social media and the low-grade daily anxiety of being perceived, still running the same calculations, still convinced that what someone thought of you at a party might determine whether you make it through the week. It doesn't know that things are different now. It only knows that you're still here, and that whatever it's been doing for 200,000 years across every ancestor who came before you has so far worked.